And so when you approach people with an interest, they respond much differently than, as you said eloquently, a criticism. I'm not here to tell you that you're not great how you are. You are, but you can be better. Everyone can be better, right? And so whether that's in an organization, and whether that's healthcare, again, I work, marketing, it's all the same. And when you're building a startup, so with Insightify right now, all of my conversations start with learning the person and taking from that, okay, what are your struggles? What are your barriers? What do you do well? And that is invariably my first conversation with any agency, hospital, EMS. I would have that same conversation in any industry. I want to know about you and what you are passionate about, what you struggle with, because when you are more in tune with yourself and you understand what you bring to the table and where your challenges are, you're better for your team, you're better for your clients and your customers, and frankly, it's easier to build your brand.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the jungle. We're so glad you're here. I am super excited to be joined by my good friend, Brett Lyle with Insightify and Brett Lyle Coaching. Brett, how's it going today?
I'm well. How are you today, Hamilton?
Doing well. And you said you're in Dallas.
I am, Dallas, Texas.
Awesome. How's the weather in Dallas?
Rainy and not quite winter like it is in the north, but it's cold for us. So
It's been raining here all week. It looks like we got some good conditions today, so we'll hold out and hope those will continue. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start and just let you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background as to what you do and kind of who you are.
Sure. My name's Brett Lyle. So as you alluded to, I've got kind of a couple things working. So I am working with a startup company called Insightify out of Austin, Texas. So we're a software technology company, a really communication platform, and I'll go into that here in a little bit. But a communication platform focused on performance management. Really my big passion and what I bring to the table at Insightify is coaching. So Brett Lyle Coaching is a brand that I've created for myself, which is just me and who I am, and had some life experiences here lately. I spent 8 years in healthcare, in pre-hospital, EMS specifically, and really tried really hard to drive some things home with my formal education, communication, and persuasion, and doing some sales stuff, but really trying to drive some culture change, and found I ran up against a lot of barriers. And when I left healthcare, had a non-compete, trying to decide what am I going to do with my life, and had a really unique opportunity to press reset at 30 years old, and went and traveled, went to Spain, and decided that really where my real passion is in coaching. So I found a unique opportunity to drive those two things together. So I'm doing some coaching with a startup company that's a communication platform, which is my big passion. So that's what I'm up to.
Well, it doesn't seem like you have too much free time on your hands, if you will.
No. Free what?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that term, I'm sure. I've always said that greatness happens at the intersection of passion and your gifts, right? It seems like you've kind of found that of, the crossroads of, I know what my gifts are. Now I can understand where my passion is. And that's where you truly find greatness. I guess just take us through kind of that struggle, because I know as a young professional and many of us are looking at our future careers and saying, man, this looks like murky water. And I thought it was going to be a crystal clear stream. How does that play out in real life? Give us the difference between real life and this fantasy world that a lot of us tend to live in.
Right. Absolutely. My sister, so I have to plug my alma mater because I am an Aggie and we're very loud and proud. So Giga Aggies, whoop. So we graduated and I kind of learned my sister's life lesson. She was 2 years ahead of me, and she was a biology animal science major, also at A&M, and decided junior year she didn't want to be a vet. And then what did she do, right? So she ended up just basically getting a degree to get a degree, which I think a lot of people do nowadays, and graduated with a college education in something she had no interest in. So she redirected and had to go back and get a master's, and now she's in finance and oil and gas. So I kind of learned her lesson. Fortunately, was able to see that live. And people always tell you to do what you love, and I think that I would love to believe that that's how you make a successful career. But you got to be able to pay bills too, right? So nail it.
That's a whole other crossroads.
Yeah. So I know that communication is something. I mean, it was always a joke. One of my best friends growing up, her mom would, always call me Chatty Cathy, and she's like, "Right, you could make friends with a brick wall." I'm like, yeah, probably, but really, that's just me talking to myself, right? So I started thinking about what am I good at? And I know that I can carry on a conversation, and I'm very intrigued by people and learning about people and understanding, culture, but also what drives people and what makes them tick is fascinating to me. And so that curiosity really led me to how do I make that a career? So I started in, like I said, EMS and healthcare. I'm not a caregiver. I'll be the first to say I'm not clinical, but I care about people. And so what I was able to accomplish in EMS, and that I really still feel passionately about my ability to do, is translating, right? Business translating for people. We've got a bunch of clinicians who speak their own language very well. It's not so different than love languages in a personal relationship. I know what matters to you, and I know what matters to this person, and I know who needs to be at the table. So it's about resources and finding the right people. And I really view myself as a connector. I mean, I'm a professional networker and a translator.
That's a fantastic. I mean, you can love someone. I think this is I forget where. I think it's actually Tim Keller's book, The Meaning of Marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Keller says two people can love one another, but if one of them only speaks Spanish and the other only speaks English, that will never be translated through language.
Right. Right.
So what you're saying is you're connecting those feelings, those emotions, those workplace emotions, if you will, to one another in a common language, which is really, really neat.
Absolutely.
And I was reading on your profile, it seemed like you had experience in multiple different industries. Was there anyone that you were, leaning more towards or more fond of? I know you started in the healthcare industry, but have you branched out any more than that? You've said, you know what, I started in healthcare, but I've really found that I enjoy blank. I don't know what that is. You tell me.
Yeah. I've been working since I was 15. I started in health and wellness. So I was 15 years old writing workout programs for people. So I worked at a small family-owned gym and was entrusted at a really young age to really help people and support people in their goals. And so I think I've been really fortunate. I've also been very intentional about surrounding myself with people who are looking to better themselves. Where I struggle from a interpersonal relationship standpoint is I'm really not surrounded by many people that aren't interested in growing and challenging themselves and bettering themselves. And so that's who I am as a person. I challenge people in a positive way. I hope is the goal that you're pushing people to be a better version. So my coaching brand is it's kind of this Forever Brett is my personal brand. And the concept behind that is that nobody's asking you to change. If you talk to someone, you say, "Hey, what do you do?" and they tell you they're a life coach, the immediate response is, "Oh, so you're great at life?" And how do you answer that, right? And none of us are better at life or worse than life.
Pause and a deep breath.
Right. And so to kind of circumvent that, because really what it really is life coaching. But that looks different for different people. So sometimes the priority in their life right now is career. Sometimes it's personal relationships. Sometimes it's your relationship with yourself. So the way that I've really kind of discerned those different pieces is Forever Brett is me, right? I will always be who I am. I don't know how early your early memory is, but when I was little, I've always been super passionate. And my mom says bossy, but yeah, she's not on this podcast, so it's fine. But I've always known what I want. I've always known who I am. In that moment, right? Who you are changes. But if you look at children, I don't know if you have children or not. You look at children; they are who they are at 7. Yep. They have their little personalities. If they're stubborn, they're hard-headed, they're caregiver, they're passionate. You see that in a child. And, the way that I see it is you are who you are, but you can always be better. So who you are at your core is what I want to learn about people, right? What drives you and what makes you so passionate? And it manifests in different ways at different stages in your life. And you learn how to use that as a gift and capitalize from a business standpoint on your authentic self. And that's really what I think, whether it's with Insideify with this company and I'm working with EMS agencies, or if I were to be working in healthcare or with a apartment complex, whomever, all leadership and all culture in every industry comes down to humans. So the first stage in being a good team member and being a good team player is understanding who you are, what you bring to the table, and knowing where your gaps are. So you can either fill them, find a way to get better at them and grow into it yourself, or find someone else who's good at it, which might be more efficient.
That's fantastic. One thing that popped in my head when you were talking, I don't see anybody getting mad at jewelers for cutting up diamonds. I don't.
Right.
But that's what they do to make them more beautiful, right? They knock off the rough edges so that you can be presented with this shining jewel, right? I see that being more of what you do than someone who goes in, criticize, and to criticize is a quote from my grandfather. He said, to criticize is to say you're not like me.
That's great.
Loved that. To criticize is to say you're not like me, but you're not criticizing. And I think that life coaching gets a lot of that bad rap. What you're doing is you're developing. You're that jewelry that's knocking off the rough edges. You're the one that's polishing out some of the scuffs. And it takes a special person. I know that you get that rap. And how did you kind of overcome just the thought process of, I hear these people saying, oh, you must have life right. Do I present myself that way versus if you brand yourself the right way? Is it, let me know how that happened for you.
Yeah. So I think it's authenticity. Is it people? So I've been in sales for a long time. And again, I was selling gym memberships and personal training. I worked for a marketing agency when I was in college, learned a lot about a lot. I'm a Gemini and a middle child. So I'm a talker and a listener, and I've got an opinion about everything. So, we're kind of known for being the jack of all, master of none. I don't think that's true, but we are typically the communicators. And so the social butterflies. To me, again, that goes back to being fascinated. And so when you approach people with an interest, they respond much differently than, as you said eloquently, a criticism. I'm not here to tell you that you're not great how you are. You are. But you can be better. Everyone can be better, right? And so whether that's in an organization, and whether that's healthcare, again, I work, marketing, it's all the same. And when you're building a startup, so with Insideify right now, all of my conversations start with learning the person and taking from that, okay, what are your struggles? What are your barriers? What do you do well? And that is invariably my first conversation with any agency, hospital, EMS. I would have that same conversation in any industry. I want to know about you and what you are passionate about, what you struggle with, because when you are more in tune with yourself and you understand what you bring to the table and where your challenges are, you're better for your team, you're better for your clients and your customers, and frankly, it's easier to build your brand.
You're absolutely right. So I'm a pilot recreationally. And you want to know where you are. You're of no help to anyone else if you're lost in the clouds. Right. How can I help you if I don't even know where I'm at?
Right.
And
I think,
go ahead.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people live in that state, that it's an acceptable place to be where people just float. And to me, it's a sad state of affairs because there's a lot of people who are working just to work, not because they love what they do. And it's not because the industry is wrong or their job is wrong. It's because they haven't found that little thing that makes them tick in that role. And so, every one of us, I think once you've worked for more than, maybe even sometimes a couple of years, you've worked for a boss who doesn't get you and you just can't get aligned with. You've been in a position where you realize at some point and I'll speak for myself, this isn't the right company for me, or this isn't the right culture, or whatever that is. And you have to make that mental shift, because sometimes you have to do what you have to do, right? I have this job because I need the paycheck right now, and that's where I am in life. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So I think there's a misconception when people think about coaching that you've always got to be doing something and you've always got to be changing this or uprooting this, and it has to be this big dramatic thing. Sometimes it's about appreciating where you are. And that's, if my best friend is sitting here listening, they would be shaking their head going, yeah, Brett, listen to your own advice, because it's practice, right? It's something that you have to be mindful of. And so some of the tools and tricks that I use that I found really valuable, I do gratitude journaling like it's going out of style. When I'm in a really bad mood, I will pull out my journal and just start writing everything specifically from that day that I'm grateful for until I switch my mood. And it's down to something like, I'm glad my phone didn't ring during the podcast, or, to distract me, or I'm glad I only said 17 times instead of 217. It's about getting granular with yourself and understanding, and you really start to see what you're grateful for, and what you're grateful for are things that you value.
Yep.
You learn so much about yourself even by going external, right? What do I see in my day today that I am grateful for? And so I personally do I call it my day in review. I'm sure there's some great, you guys have a lot of marketing followers. Someone going to help me with my marketing around my day in review. I'd be appreciative, but I do 3 things. And so I write down what I've accomplished for the day, because I'm a to-do lister. So this is separate from my to-do list. This is what have I gotten. It might have not even been on my to-do list. What have I accomplished for the day? And I write down everything that I've accomplished that I'm proud of. I go through what am I grateful for my day? And I try to do 5 things, and I give myself a bonus 6, but I always have a bonus 6. Because when you really dig deep, it's easy to find things to be grateful for. And the last thing is really about positive affirmation. So whether it's a love language or just talking about negative self-talk, it is so easy to get caught up in what goes wrong in your day, what you could have done better, running through conversations that could have gone differently. So I give myself the grace to say, here's what I've accomplished, so I feel successful. Here's what I'm grateful for, so I feel like I have a full heart at the end of the day. And then what are my positive affirmations? Because there's always that negative self-talk going, well, that's great, but you could have done 16 more things. Or that's great, but tomorrow's going to be terrible. Or whatever that is. So I give myself the ability to really get in my head and in my heart to say, what are my positive affirmations? And those are just, silly as it is, I'm going to close a $60,000 deal, and I'm going to do it in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to do, I'm going to have 6 new conversations. I'm going to do this. And I speak them in present. This is going to happen. So I'm putting that out there in the energy in the universe. And so I get to go to bed feeling accomplished and grateful and happy. And then, the idea is you wake up with those same feelings.
That's awesome. To your point, have you read the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell?
Which was the book? I'm sorry.
It's called Blink.
I have not read it.
So Blink, it's kind of a long book. It's talking about how our instincts far outweigh extensive research in a lot of our decision making.
Absolutely.
One portion of the book, he talks about emotions, more facial expression than anything, and how I believe that facial expressions are reactive of our emotions, but in reality, our facial expressions can be the determining factor of what our emotions become.
Absolutely.
People that smiled, even though they were unhappy, when they smiled, they became happy.
Yes.
And that seems straight to your point of, it's not always how you feel. It's you can put yourself in a different mood by listening to different music. You can put yourself in that positive state of mind by writing down what you're thankful for. There was a youth pastor of mine back in the day that said, try praying tonight and not asking for anything, only thanking.
Right. That's the spiritual version of gratitude, right?
It's incredible. You don't take the time normally to think about, you know what, today was a success, and let's write down what today's successes were. It might not have been on my to-do list, but these are the things that I accomplished, and tomorrow's going to be even better day.
Right.
You don't hit that reset button if it was a bad day. But
if
it was a good day, write it down and make sure you remember it. That's fantastic. Let's dive in a little bit into the Insightify, because I'm interested in what you're doing there, and kind of give us a little bit of information there.
Sure. So one of the things that one, I was really fortunate to come across the opportunity. So a couple friends of mine have been in healthcare, kind of peripheral, for quite some time. So a couple founders, one of them is a founder of a very successful electronic patient care reporting system. I've been around for about 15 years and no longer with them. Started a second venture with a EMS billing software company. And so this is kind of project number 3 for him. The other is in the data side of healthcare as well. I'm working for a separate company. So it's the 3 of us and some developers, so we all wear a lot of hats. It's been a super fun learning process for me and a huge challenge, which is exactly what drives me is, right, what can I accomplish? What can I do? What can I learn? It's a great place to be, but I really was fortunate. I fell across the opportunity. As you said, I was, very much in a reflective state. Went and moved back out to the beach, was living on the beach and enjoying trying to build my coaching business and really ramping up with that. And was asked to come on board with this group. And really, we're building a company, which is super exciting. And I think it's the right time in, where our country is, economically. There's some really, really great tools to build, right? Social media. We're on a podcast right now, and I'm getting and so there's an ability to really connect with people. And so my interest in this company, because I'm like, I've done healthcare, I've done EMS, maybe it's time to do something different. But I know that the gap that I had felt in business development in healthcare was the gap that I am most passionate about, which is encouraging and leading and mentoring humans, right? Humans are humans. And I think it's so easy in any industry to treat people like a number. It's the easy path, right? It's a manager, it's not a leader, but really finding, and so my passion is about finding leaders. And like the diamond's a great example, is that you've got diamonds in the rough, right? You can walk into any terrible culture or some operation, some small business, some big business, and you ask people how their day's going, and you learn about their culture fast. And because of that, a lot of times in these industries, people don't ask the question, they just stop talking, which is the most dangerous place, right? So the cool thing about Insideify and what we do is it's an app, it's a mobile first application. We have a back end with some admin functions and some reporting mechanisms. Obviously we're in the healthcare space, so it's a, HIPAA compliant, follows all the regulations for being able to do data sharing or telemedicine. There's a video component and a direct message component. But really my piece of it and where I am the most interested and where I know that will have the most impact is not in the tool. I mean, how many applications for communication do you use, Hamilton?
A lot.
Yeah, you've got WhatsApp, you've got Facebook Messenger, you've got Marco Polo now for videos, you've got, pick a topic. You've got Microsoft Teams, you've got Slack. The number's easy. Yeah, right. The mechanism and the tool is not what's lacking. It's the connection to humans. And so what we're doing is something unique. And it's not just data share, which a lot of companies out there are doing in healthcare. There's a handful that do it really well. We don't create data. We integrate with those companies who do data well. We give people visibility. But the gap in healthcare has been that the individuals, you have a lot of people sitting in the ivory tower. The CEO, the CFO, and the COO know their numbers. They know what's expected. They know what it impacts. Things like turnover rates, right? So staffing is a huge issue in healthcare and every sector, hospital, pre-hospital, fire departments. You've got volunteer departments, which are basically going away. It's a huge public health issue. It's a burning platform political issue that needs attention, but it's not about the politics. It's about the people. So if I call 911 right now, I want to know that somebody's going to show up that's reliable, and I want to know that that employee feels valued because they're going to give me better patient care. And I want to know if I have to call for my grandma halfway across the country that my grandma is going to get the same level of care. And I mean that from a person perspective. Clinically, it's going to look different. The certifications of who shows up on the scene, how they show up on the scene. There's a lot of dynamics in pre-hospital and EMS that general public doesn't understand. So as a sidebar, if this is resonating with you, please go do some research and learn who your EMS provider is. A lot of people don't know what happens. They just know they pick up the phone, call 911. They don't have a clue who shows up.
Yep.
And they don't know if they're going to get a bill. They don't know what that looks like. Totally different topic for another day. But what I want to know and what I believe will give me fulfillment at the end of my day. So kind of selfish. It's not totally altruistic, right? This is what makes me tick, is being able to make an impact. And at a community level, being able to say, hey, I'm working with this EMS agency in Dallas, Texas, or I'm working with this fire department in, Virginia. And I know at the end of the day that those employees and those leaders feel supported, feel connected, they're engaged. They don't have staffing issues because they've got engagement, people that love to show up to work. That's what makes me tick. So I really feel like we have a unique opportunity to fill in some of those technology gaps that the industry's been missing for a long time.
That's awesome. It seems like you focus a lot around the social determinants of things, rather than just numbers on paper and names that may or may not resonate with you. It's a person that shows up at your house that's going to either be there to save your life, or it could be a bad day. My father's a judge, which that doesn't be bearing on healthcare, but he said, I can't afford to have a bad day.
Right.
If I have a bad day, someone either goes to jail for longer than they should, or my brain is all over the place. I have to be fully focused on doing my job and doing it well, because these people depend on it. It's the same with what you do, and you can't afford to have a bad day. And
right.
What you're doing is really spectacular.
Right. And there's a lot of pieces to this, and my challenge is, again, it's a startup company. And so we're doing, I'm running our social media and trying to drive that. If you go to our social media page, which I think you should, our LinkedIn company page is all about the why. So I don't know if you're familiar, if you follow Simon Sinek, I'm sure if you follow, Gladwell, you follow Maxwell, all the leadership. There's a lot of sales tactics. There's a lot of people that have strong opinions. To me, sales is easy. And as long as you start with curiosity and you take that approach, when you come up against something that is different than what you think and you're curious and you're interested, you're going to learn. And sometimes it solidifies what you believe. If I say, hey, I believe that the sky is blue, but I want to know what color you see, and you tell me that it's teal, tell me why you think that. What are you relating that to? And maybe I'm going to be convinced of your view. Maybe we negotiate and we come to something better. There's nothing wrong with you thinking it's teal. Makes me understand that I think that it's blue a little better, right? But it's that intellect and that process around understanding why you believe what you believe. And again, goes back to the human aspect of what makes you tick. What I love about healthcare, Hamilton, is their caregivers. And I told you first, I'm not. I am way more selfish than I would like to admit most days. I love people. I'm interested. I'm fascinated. I believe I'm a good person, but I don't have that in me that I see, somebody and I'm like, how can I help? What can I do? In that level that these, paramedics and EMTs, even wheelchair van drivers have. And it's incredible. I have so much respect for what they do. And to me, having that very passionate audience, and it comes with its own challenges in our industry, but having that passionate, captive audience who just needs a little bit of guidance is doable, right? If it's doable, why aren't we doing it?
That's awesome. I can tell just by, and I know we're 1,000 miles away from one another, I can tell in your face and your facial expressions, the tone of your voice, that you are passionate in it. And it's exciting for us to have somebody like you on the show to share that, because like I said, we're 1,000 miles away. I can feel your energy from here. And,
thank you.
I can understand why you say now that sales is easy, because for your personality, it's hard not to want to be on board with what you're driving. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like for the viewers to know about Insightify, about your coaching business? How would they continue the conversation with you? If they're like, this one dug deep. I want to know more about that. How can they continue the conversation?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. Would love to connect there. Brett Lyle Coaching is my hashtag. So if you're interested in just some quick tips, I do a lot of tips and guides. And there's a rule of threes. People remember things in threes. So I do a lot of, hey, if you want to connect with people quickly, here's how. 1, 2, 3. So pretty easy to absorb content. I love personal connections. So reach out, don't be shy, send me a message, tell me you saw the podcast, even more valuable. I have to share with you, Hamilton, this is my first podcast. So it's really exciting for me.
I don't think anybody else would have known it either. So.
Yeah, well, I love it. And in Sightify, it's very easy. It's a letter N and then SIGHTIFY. The process of becoming, of having insight and becoming, more knowledgeable and more wise is really what that's about. And so I guess just to drive home the point that, wherever you are in life is where you're supposed to be. And the things that we experience and the days that we have and the emotions that we have are there for a reason. And whether you believe that's a higher being that gives you that gift, or your personal intuition, or your learned experiences, whatever your belief is about why, it's important for you to connect with you because you're going to be better for everybody around you when you're better for yourself. You have more to bring to the table. So no matter where you are, no matter what industry you're in, if any of this resonates, please share, because I'm all about lifting people up and celebrating wins and capitalizing on positive energy and momentum. So please do connect with me, connect with Insightify. And if you've got questions, I'm always happy to help personally or professionally.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett. I hope that on tonight's list, you get to check off this as an accomplishment for today, because this was big win for both.
It is.
So,
the first.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everybody else watching today. We thank you for coming to the jungle today with Brett Lyle, Hamilton Winter Strategist for Liger Partners. We can't wait to catch you next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.